Good morning. We'll get started on our transcript training for enrollment coordinators. I appreciate everyone attending at short notice. We had a request to do some more detailed transcript training and maybe to answer questions and help clarify some issues. Morgan Jackson is with me, and I'm Beth Belcher, and we'll be going through the transcript training workbook that I sent out initially, and I sent it out again on Friday. So we're going to go through these, and I hope some of you have had a chance to work some of the problems in the workbook and maybe have some questions about this. So we'll get started. Okay, first we're going to start with high school transcripts on page 4. And some things you need to know about high school transcripts is that high schools do need to be state recognized or regionally accredited, and the private schools are going to be a little bit harder to identify. Some of them may be accredited through a accrediting body, and you'll just want to check on those. For us, we're going to stick with public schools. They'll be a lot easier to identify. Things you'll want to look for on the transcript is that the degree earned or the diploma earned is not going to be a vocational diploma, a technical diploma, definitely not special education or certificate or credit-based diplomas. These, let me back up just a second. Vocational transcripts from high schools, we do accept those from Georgia, and I know a lot of you are in our Georgia sites. They do have to meet some minimum requirements like GPA and Carnegie units, and in particular they have to have passed all their graduation exams. So that's down at the bottom of this page. Going back up a little bit to this section right here about having 15 Carnegie units, that is something we do have to check on all high school transcripts. Most students who've got just a general diploma have anywhere from 20 to 30 units to graduate, and that's from grades 9 through 12. But when we're checking them, we have to have the student having passed at least 3 English units. Then the other 8, well, actually there has to be 11 of academic credits, so that includes 8 math, science, social studies, or even more English. Usually they've got 4 English because they get an English credit in grades 9 through 12. So anyway, they have to have 15 Carnegie units, 11 of those have to be academic, and then the other 4 can be anything else like PE, band, any kind of vocational stuff. So those are pretty much up to whatever the student has taken in class. The GPAs are calculated on a 10-point scale. That's in this section right here. We have to be real careful of certain school systems that use a much stricter grading scale, and if you see that the student has a low GPA but you notice that they're getting D's for something in the 70s or they're failing if they're in their 60s, we can go back and recalculate their GPA on a standard 10-point grading scale, so that way the student at one school, their GPA compares to the same grading scale as anybody else coming to Troy University. So that sort of equalizes the playing field. Okay, moving on to page, I'm going to actually skip page 5 and page 6. Those are just some details about how GPA is calculated. I got this off of a training website, but you can read it if you want more details on it. We do always use the weighted GPA. So if you do see a weighted and an unweighted GPA on a transcript, go with the weighted. That takes into consideration any advanced placement classes they may have taken or any college prep classes. They get some extra credit for those, so that gives them a higher weighted GPA. One thing I want to point out, let me go back a page, down at the bottom is where to convert high school percent grade to a 4.0 scale. And to let you know, just for your information, a 73 on the scale is equivalent to a 2.0, so anything with a 73 or higher will meet GPA requirements for the high school. And here's what the web page looks like, how to convert your GPA to a 4.0 scale. So if the transcript that you have does not have like a 2.83 listed on the high school GPA, you can just look up, say, an 85 on the scale and find out that an 85 is going to be equal to a 3.0. And that way you don't have to do any kind of calculations. It's already done for you based on this website. Okay, page 7. We're going to look at this sample high school GPA. This is only grade 9, and this gives us just a quick start. We can look at the grades here, and basing this on a 10-point scale, a 70 would be equal to a C. So we come down here, and you notice it's 1 credit. So down here we do a C for 1 credit in this column, and there's going to be 3 C's worth 1 credit on this particular transcript. Then you go down to the 85. It's only worth half a credit, so that's a B for half a credit. That's marked over here in this tally marks. Then the 79 is a C for 1 point. 73 is a 1 point C, half a credit A, then a half a credit B, a full credit B. The 75, 90, and 93 are all half credits, and so those are all tallied in our little chart here. Then you multiply across 2 half credits, excuse me, 3 half credits totals 1.5 A's, 2 half credit B's plus 1 full credit equals 2 full B's. C's totals 3.5, and then you get your full total of 7 credits, which does equal the 7 credits listed on the transcript. So now we need to calculate the GPA of this 9th grade. Calculating the GPA, you take your totals right here in this column, multiply the point values. A's are worth 4, B's are worth 3, C's are worth 2, D's are worth 1, and of course F's are worth 0. Multiply it across. 1.5 times 4 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, 3.5 times 2 is 7, and your points are going to be 19. So then to get the GPA, you divide your total points divided by your total hours to get a 2.714. We don't round up, so we would call this a 2.71. Any questions at this point? Okay, no questions. Let's move on. Okay, here's practice number 1. This is just going to be grade 9 for this particular student. Again, we would calculate all of the 70s as C's, any 80s as B's, the 60s as D's, and then there's one A down here, a 93 for an A. And you'll see that they're all worth half a point. And even these that have 0 points, obviously this is on a stricter grading scale than what we're going to calculate. They didn't get any credit for anything in the 60s down here, but we're going to give them a half credit for each of those. And so when you total all of those into the chart, making tally marks under each item, you end up with 1 half credit A, 3 half credit B's, 4 half credit C's, 6 half credit D's. And I made some notes. Notice all the 60 to 69 grades have 0 credit. But we can tell that there are going to be half credits because when you compare them, this physical science B with a 67, he retook it and got a physical science B with a B the second time. But he's going to get credit for taking it both times, because we do count everything that they take in high school. We don't waive any grades at all. So when you multiply all these totals out, half credit A, 1.5 credits B, 2 credits C's, 3 credit D's, there's a total of 7 credits. Multiply by the point values for each grade. You get your total points. 2 points for A, 4.5 points for B, 4 for C, 3 for D, totaling 17.5 points earned from this student in grade 9, and you'll divide that by the total hours. So points divided by hours equals a 2.5. So not too bad. Another example. This one's a little bit harder because this is grades 9 through 12, and you'll notice that There's pluses and minuses on this particular transcript. We simply disregard the pluses and minuses. We don't give extra credit for pluses. We don't take away any points for minuses. So when you do that, our GPA often is slightly different than what the school gets. This one, we're going to calculate Carnegie units. We need to find out how many English credits this student has. They have to have at least 3. How many math? Social studies. Social studies includes all of your histories, your government, your economics, anything that you would have taken in a history class in high school. Science, that covers your general science, your biology, earth science, chemistries, physics, things like that. And then other is going to be your band, your PE. This particular student has architect drawing, keyboarding, anything that's non-science, social studies, math, or English, non-academic courses. And in the interest of time, I've gone ahead and worked out this problem, and hopefully you've had a chance to do so yourself. If not, I'm going to provide the answers and let you go back and try these practice examples yourself, and then you'll have the answers to compare them to. And if you have questions about why your answers are different than what we've got, we'd be glad to go over them individually with you. Okay, so here we're going to disregard any pluses and minuses. There's nothing that specifies English on this transcript, so communication, that's going to be our English classes, and they all begin with a 1-2. We need 15 total credits. 11 need to be academic. 3 need to be English. So when we start counting all the ones that begin with 1200, you've got 1200 and 1201, that's communications in 9th grade. Coming down here to 10th grade, you've got communications 2 and 2, so that's probably semester 1 and semester 2. In fact, here's a D for semester 1 and a B for semester 2. Coming over here to your 10th grade year, now it's called American Literature and Composition. So you got semester 1, semester 2. And then in 12th grade, you have creative writing. You've got media literacy and composition. So those are going to be your English courses. So semester 1 and semester 2 are both half credits. So that's a full credit for 9th grade, a full credit for 10th grade, a full credit for 11th grade, and another full credit for 12th grade. That's what you'll see on most transcripts, 4 English credits. Then you've got your math to figure out. I've got 3.5. 3.5, we've got pre-algebra. We've got B for semester 1, C for semester 2. Algebra 1, we've got a B and a C. Over here, you've got geometry, a C and a C. So far we're up to 3 credits. And then in the 12th grade, Algebra 2. Algebra 2 has a C and an F. The F will count in the GPA, but it does not count as a Carnegie unit. So that's why he's only got 3.5 instead of 4. He failed the second half of Algebra 2. Okay, next, we're looking for social studies. I only came up with 3 of those. Let's look. We have World Studies 1 and 2, or over here, B and B. The next one, we have U.S. History at the bottom, D and D. 11th grade, we have, looks like, I would say American Problems and Promises. And the reason I say that is when you go and look at the World Studies, it begins with a 23. U.S. History begins with a 23. And then the American Problems begins with a 23. So I'm assuming that's the coding for all of your social studies courses. And then moving on down to your 12th grade, I did not see any courses beginning with a 23. So he only took history courses in grades 9, 10, and 11. And then science, we came up with 4. You've got biology in grade 9. You have chemical and physical science in grade 10. Grade 11, you have earth science and investigative science. They both begin with 2200. And then In the 12th grade, the 2200s are the bottom, the ecology and space science, so 4 credits there. So when you total all those up, you come up with 14.5 academic credits. He only needed 11, so that's great. And then when you total up all the units of other stuff, it's 12.5. So he's got plenty of credits to come to Troy, or Carnegie units. Now we need to check the GPA. So when you go down the different columns, you've got C, B, B, A, C, all for half credits in first semester. Second semester, all half credits. Then first semester of 11th and 12th grade, second semesters of 11th and 12th grade. You can do it by year, you can do it by column, whatever way's best, but have some kind of method for calculating or adding up all of your totals. What I got was 10 half credit A's, totaling 5. A's are worth 4 points each, so he earned a total of 20 A credits. B's, there were 17 half credits, totaling 8.5. Then 3 is the value of a B, totaling 25.5. There were 23 C's, so he's definitely a BC student. 23 C's, half credit each, totaling 11.5. Multiply that by 2 points for a C, you get 23. He had 4 D's, totaling 2 points. They're worth 1 point each, and that's a total of 2 points. And then 1 F on the transcript. It was half a credit, and that's not worth anything. So you total all of the hours that the student took to get 27.5. Total up all the points that you've calculated to get 70.5. Divide those out, 70.5 divided by 27.5, and the student's GPA is a 2.56. So this is a much more detailed and realistic view of what you'll be doing if you have to hand calculate GPAs on a high school transcript. Any questions at this point? Feel free to use the chat anytime you have any questions. We're going to go through these pretty quickly to make sure we get through college transcripts and some other things on the in the book.
And if you did work ahead and you came to a different answer, speak up and let us know, and we can look at them more closely.
All right, next, practice number 3. I'm not going to go over this. What you'll want to notice is grade 9 has 2 semesters. Grade 10 has 2 semesters. Grade 11, for whatever reason, is column 2 and column 4. What that is, column 2 would be the grades at the end of the second 9 weeks, and column 4 would be grades at the end of the fourth 9 weeks, which would be basically semester 1 and semester 2, and it's all in one sticker, I guess is how they put it on the high school transcript. Grade 12, they go back to 2 separate columns. So just be careful that these are all individual semesters. This one is 2 semesters combined, and then back to individual semesters. And just looking at it briefly, I've sort of highlighted that on the answer sheet. 1 semester, 1 semester, 2 semesters, 1 semester, and 1 semester. The student does have plenty of Carnegie units, and when you multiply it out, I used all the little tally marks to make sure I got all the grades in there. Again, using a 10-point scale where 60 to 69 is a D, 70 to 79 is a C, 80 to 89 is a B, and anything 90 or above is a A. And then multiplying it out, dividing it out, I got a 2.29. Practice number 4. Again, this is going to be an entire school year, and this one, if you work it out, some things I'd like to point out is that drafting right here, actually these 4 semesters have drafting, and they're worth 1.5 credits. So there's different ways you can do the 1.5 credits. The GPA is already calculated as a 2.56, but when you disregard the pluses and minuses, we actually get a slightly different GPA. This one uses communication for English, like one of the previous ones we had. And I'm going to look at the answer sheet real quick with you. Lots of notes on this one. Grade 11, communication. You'll have an N that doesn't count. You'll have an R for algebra in grade 10. Don't count that when you calculate it. We can't calculate N's and R's. They don't have a grade point value. Communication equals English. Mythology and folklore are also going to be Englishes. You can't see it behind this grade 11, 12, but drafting is worth the 1.5 credits, and I've got those underlined for you to help call your attention to those. School GPA is a 2.56. I got a 2.79. Some questions down here. Did you get the same GPA as the school? No. If not, why do you think the GPA you calculated is different? Because we don't penalize for the minuses when we recalculate on a flat grading scale. And when can recalculating a GPA make a difference for the student? When they have a borderline GPA. So just imagine if this GPA was say a 1.90 from the school and they had lots of minuses on the transcript. When we recalculate it, good chances are that they'll have over a 2.0 when we finish. And we will admit them and we'll justify our reasons at that point. Next one. This is a handwritten transcript, and again, I'm not going to make you go through this one. It is hard to read. There's a couple of advanced placement courses on it. This transcript also includes grades 7 and 8, which at first glance you might want to try to calculate those grades in there, but then you have to realize to exclude 7 and 8 because we're only going to compare grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 with other students coming to Troy. The ACT score is also listed on here, which is a benefit. I'm going to go ahead and go to the answer sheet with all the notes that I've got. See, there's plenty of things to note on here. 7th and 8th grade don't count towards the high school GPA. There's a first semester and a second semester. They're half credits each. Marked out the middle school so I don't accidentally try to calculate that in my tallies. I highlighted the advanced classes. There's Advanced English, and Advanced American History. That way I can make sure that they get some extra credit, where I even made an extra column for those, because according to the scale here, the advanced classes, an A gets 5 points, a B gets 4 points, C's get 3 points, D's get 2, and F's still get 0. So they do get some extra credit, which changes the GPA just a bit. Other things to note on here is the ACT score is listed right here. I've got the composite score circled. It was a 10. No matter what their GPA is, a 10 will not get you to Troy University, so I'm sure this student, if we were making a decision based on their high school transcript, would have been denied. Hopefully they had some college credit that we could overlook this transcript. The school came up with a GPA of a 2.13. I'm wondering if they forgot to give the advanced credit, because when I calculated it, I had a 2.21. In fact, I recalculated it without advanced credit just to see, and I got a 2.10. So I'm not sure exactly what the discrepancy is. Any way you look at it, the student does have over a 2.0. If they're over age 25, we can ignore this ACT score. So that would be my suggestion. If you have a prospect who is, say, about 24 years old, tell them to wait till they're 25 and we can ignore their ACT score. Or they can go get some community college transfer credit and we won't have to base their decision on the high school transcript. And practice number 6 is another challenge. It's a Georgia high school transcript. Again, it reminds you that Georgia has a strict grading scale, and you can see the grading scale right in this section right here. Anything 70 and below was failing according to this transcript. However, what I did is went through and calculated all the grades based on a 10-point scale. So they did get credit for anything in the 60s when I recalculated it. And I'm going to go ahead and go over to the answer sheet. Okay, so these are all half credits, everything in this column. That's grade 9. They failed English in grade 9, so this says they were still in grade 9, but it's actually their 10th grade year. They just had to repeat the 9th grade English. And everything here is 1.0 because it's a full year. These were based on semesters. Going down to grade 11, again, it's 1 credit each. And then grade 12 is 1 credit each. Here's their graduation exams. Again, it's a Georgia transcript. So we just wanted to double check if they were a vocational student, then we would have to make sure they had the GPA, the Carnegie units, and the graduation exams. Some questions at the bottom. Did the student graduate? Yes. That's right up here. The date was May of 2012. What type of diploma? Again, it says general high school diploma. It's a Georgia transcript. Did the student pass the graduation test? Again, yes. What GPA did the school have on the transcript? They have it calculated here as a 1.907. So I listed that here. If we went by this GPA, would the student qualify? No, they don't have a 2.0. However, again, remember this grading scale is much stricter than what everybody else is being judged on, so we do have to recalculate it. When we recalculate it, we get a 2.13. So now, does the student qualify for admission to Troy? Yes, we can justify this admission. What does this tell you about hastily reviewing transcripts? Again, recalculate based on a 10-point grading scale. Did they have enough Carnegie units? Yes. By the time they retook all those classes, they had more than enough Carnegie units. It's a shame that they didn't get credit for all the 60s that they earned, because they were a very strong 60 student and would not have had to repeat so many courses if they had just got up in the 70s. Okay, next one. Moving on to GED transcripts. I'm not sure if enrollment coordinators will be using GEDs. If so, I do want you to be familiar with them. There's several different types. A GED starting in January 2014 to 2016 had to have a 150 in each subject area. And so when you look at each subject area, not the overall score, but each subject area, had to have a 150. Now, they've loosened up those requirements a little bit. Starting in March, they've lowered it down to 145 in each subject area. So we don't look at the composite score, we actually compare each of the subject areas, and if there's any that are below our standards, they are denied. Prior to that, 2002 to 2013, they just had to have a 500 average. And so you look at the columns here, and this person has a 628, so they have a good GED score, so they are fine. Many of our students do submit GEDs in the 400s. Anything 500 and above is fine. Older ones, prior to 2002, they just had to have an average of a 50. You look over here in the last column, and this one had a 46, so that does not meet requirements for Troy University. Now, GEDs do not expire for admissions purposes, so we do take them as long as they can provide an official copy. ACT and SAT scores. You may have to look at these to determine if a student's going to meet admissions requirements. Again, these are going to be for people who are under age 25 with a high school transcript. If they are active duty military, right here, active duty military, veterans, reservists, as long as they can provide proof of their military affiliation, we can waive the ACT or SAT requirement, unless their GPA is below a 2.0. And I sent out a quick reference guide so that everyone would have a copy of it. Hopefully you've got it. Let me switch screens real quick. This is the quick reference guide, and this section up here at the top is going to be your undergraduates. The only time we need an ACT from a military student is if we're looking at this conditional and that they have less than a 2.0 high school GPA. Let's see. This very last sentence, if their GPA is under a 2.0, they have to score a 20 ACT or a 950 SAT regardless of their age or military status. So that's the only time a military student must turn in a ACT or SAT score. And just hopefully everybody's got a copy of this. This is really helpful in determining when you need to have certain documents and if they're going to meet unconditional or conditional requirements. And again, remember, transfer students never get conditional admission to Troy University. And the reason is they've already proven themselves by attending colleges and have 24 or more transfer credits, and we sort of have a good idea of what their I've got a question from Linda. Actually, Linda, this is a separate document that I sent out, but I will resend it after the webinar just to make sure everybody's got a copy of it, because to me this is one of the most important documents when making admissions decisions. Good question. Okay, the graduate section, you won't be doing temporary admission for graduates, but this is really good for you as enrollment coordinators, and I would recommend giving a copy to all of the recruiters because they can help determine what type of test scores or documents are needed for the different programs, what's needed for second and third masters, how you get conditional admission for your first masters, just exactly what's needed. Things like MBA, there is minimum scores, minimum GPAs, there's no temporary admission. If they don't meet minimum requirements, they are denied. So this is just a really good, concise document to help everyone. And then there's some additional notes at the bottom that are also useful. Okay, switching back to our training document. Okay, ACT or SAT scores. Linda, I think you're muted, not muted. Okay, this is some practices. ACT and SATs are very easy to read. The main reason for this is just giving you some different examples of what to expect. This is an ACT official score report. This is what it would look like. I've copied or circled the composite score. Here is a 14. This one is another version of an official score report. This one here is what you would see on a high school transcript and the composite score. And then another official score from a high school transcript. And this one here could be misleading. You might want to think that the composite score is 29. It's not. The composite score is actually 17. So looking at the answers on this one, okay, this one's a 14. We would have to deny this student because 17 is the minimum we take. This one here, when you look at the composite score, it's a 26. That's great, so we would admit them unconditionally. This one here, the composite score is a 27. We would again admit unconditionally. And the last one, the composite score is a 17, which is the lowest we take for conditional admission, but they do meet admissions requirements. Again, it's still dependent upon their high school GPA. Looking at SAT scores, they're a little bit different. These don't give a composite score, so we have to add their reading and their math to get a composite score. So on this first one, I've underlined those two. And the second one's got several different scores, and we'll actually compare the different scores. This is what a imported score looks like in Recruiter. And then this is what a score looks like if the student turns in an unofficial copy of their personal score report. Looking at the answers, adding the 400 and 350, you get a 750. We would have to deny this person because 830 right here is the lowest we can take, so they're denied. This one here, when you add in the 510 plus the 420, you get a 930. Actually, that's for the 6-7. The next date down was 3-8-14. When you add the 460 and the 470, you get a 930 also. That falls in the conditional range here. However, we stack the scores. We will take the highest reading score and the highest math score and add those two together. When you add the 510 from this column and the 470 from this column, you get a 980. The 980 exceeds the 950 required for unconditional admission, so we would give them unconditional admission to Troy. So the stacking really does help students. And we stack the SAT, we stack, I think, the ACT, we stack the GRE. So anything that has subtest, we will stack the scores to see if we take the highest scores from each subsection and get a higher composite score. Looking at the one from Recruiter, you add the math and the verbal. to get a 890. That is enough to admit them conditionally. And then the bottom one, where the student submitted their own copy, adding the 740 and 670, you get a 410. So this is a really great student. They're admitted temporary unconditional. The reason they're temporary is because we still need the official transcript. So ACTs and SATs are real easy. College transcripts. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So we're going to go over some basics about college transcripts first, and then we'll actually look at some examples. Troy does have a forgiveness policy. We do honor college forgiveness policies for one repeat. We can exclude the first attempt. However, if a college has no forgiveness policies, our admission staff is required to count all attempts. We cannot forgive those when we calculate the GPA. Some colleges will forgive all attempts up until the last attempt. We can't do that. We can only forgive one attempt. So we have to look at the college's forgiveness policy and our forgiveness policy when figuring this out. Alabama State is one that definitely will let you take it as many times as you need to. And so the example here shows 1, 2, 3 attempts. They waived the first 2 attempts and only counted the third one. We will have to waive the first attempt, and we will have to count the second 2 attempts in the GPA. Lawson Community College, this example shows they took psychology 1, 2, and this arrow is sort of off a little bit, but they took it 3 times. And their policy is the same as ours. They waived the first attempt, but they did count the second and third attempts. So we will honor theirs the same. Another thing you may, on a rare occasion, come across is academic bankruptcy. Troy does not have an academic bankruptcy policy, but you will occasionally see other schools that do. If a school or if a student has petitioned the school for bankruptcy and the school has approved it and allowed them to start over or waive a semester or a couple of semesters worth of grades, we do the same. We honor academic bankruptcy from other schools. So you'll see that on a very rare occasion. I think everybody's familiar with regional accreditation. We do have to make sure that they are SACS accredited, New England, Middle States, North Central, Northwest accreditation, sorry, tiny on my screen, and Western Association. So those are some of the different regional accreditations. The place where we check accreditation is the database of accredited post-secondary institutions and programs. And what you do is you find the school on the website. It tells you when they became SACS accredited. This one happened to be 2005. So any classes taken before 2005 would not be allowable in calculations for admissions. Later, if the student wants to petition for some of those classes to come in, there's a process for that they'll work with their student services advisor. Page 20, we're on remedial and developmental courses. And we had shared this in the previous webinar that we'll get the recording out to you soon. Things to be aware of are English, psychology, criminal justice, and math. Psychology, we do not take basic psychology, and Psychology 101 from some of the technical schools is not equivalent to Psychology 2200. So we do have to be careful in comparing the course descriptions to what our course Psychology 2200 is. If in doubt, ask the Free and 48 staff. They are real good at determining which psychologies will come in. General psychology is always accepted, so that's really the best one to be looking for. English and reading, we don't take any type of remedial courses. What we're looking for here is the words composition and rhetoric, literature, those all count. So when you see things like English 2, reading 4, English with no composition, these are all going to be developmental courses leading up to English 1101. So in the example from Gwinnett Technical College here, English 0096 through English 1010 are going to be considered remedial or developmental, and then college level is going to start with English 1101, which is composition and rhetoric. So that composition and rhetoric lets us know it's a college level class. This is not in your book. I've added some notes here about the math because there was some confusion on this. The information given to us was from the Free and 48 or the DMC. They are able to count courses equivalent to 1100 and 1105, and the reason for that is they need those to transfer into Troy so that the student will get credit for those and it becomes a placement course for the next class up. So if they come in with an 1100, then they can reasonably take Math 1105. If they come in with equivalent to 1105, then they can reasonably be placed in Math 1110. However, for admissions purposes, we do need to make sure that it's college level math. And that would be something equivalent to finite math, which is Math 1110, pre-calculus algebra, which is our Math 1112, or college algebra. We don't have a course called college algebra, but many colleges do, and we consider that equivalent to Math 1110. So you're looking for college algebra or better. Things that you do not want to count are going to be your remedial courses, such as Math 3, Basic Mathematics, Elementary Algebra, General Mathematics. All of those sound like pre-college level classes. Criminal justice courses are a little bit tougher because many will transfer to Troy. There are some exceptions, and what's been expressed to us is that Florida junior colleges or four-year institutions that were once junior colleges, we cannot accept CJC, CJK, CJD, CJT, or CJE. And those are going to be your more technical courses, such as patrolman, can't think offhand, but anything that sounds like something you would actually do to become a police officer, like a certificate type course, anything that's preparing you to actually be a policeman. All of the criminal justice courses are going to be more academic related and related to a bachelor's degree. So just look at the course name and think about what would that be used for. If it's more to become a policeman, it's probably going to be a technical type class. Aviation courses, they are only accepted for transfer credit into our aviation programs, either the Associates or Bachelor of Applied Science. So in general, we do exclude those.
I want to go back to the criminal justice one for just a moment. While we cannot use law enforcement academy certificates for admissions purposes, our prospective students can still submit those after they've been admitted for possible credit. So that is something to keep in mind, even though, again, can't be used for admissions.
Next page. Vocational and technical courses. This is just instructions on how to determine vocational and technical courses. We check the dates of a regional accreditation. So again, you just check to make sure that they are accredited. And then we also have to determine if the student is degree seeking or non-degree seeking. Because if they are degree seeking, we will treat the technical school transcript as if it were from a community college. And in that case, we do accept general studies and a number of courses that transfer in as electives, such as a list here: marketing, management, early childhood education, child development, and some of those. And there's a list that we'll look at in just a second. And one of the catches is the student has to only attempt an associate's degree to be considered degree seeking. So you end up looking through the entire transcript, looking for the word associate's degree or some type of degree seeking attempt. In fact, the DMC has said if the student attempts an associate's degree for even only one term, we count the entire transcript as degree seeking. We do still count some classes if they're non-degree seeking. We will not make them retake general studies courses such as math, science, English, composition, literature, history, art, music, psychology, communications, and orientation. And we always take a computer class They're usually SCT 100 or Comp 1000. So basically some very general studies. Even if they're a certificate or diploma, we will not make them redo those classes. And this just tells how to determine if they were degree seeking. You can look through that at your leisure. Withdrawals. I'm going to go forward just a little bit here. This is the list of courses. I've highlighted this. If you can print it out in color, it may be beneficial. If they're degree seeking, we do take a lot more classes than if they were non-degree seeking. Non-degree seeking, we generally take just the general studies, and then we take the computer courses. Whereas if they're degree seeking, we take accounting, allied health courses, business English, business math, childhood, computer technology, early childhood, EMP courses, hotel and restaurant and tourism, logistics, management, marketing, supply chain management, and again, computers. So this is a really good list to help determine what we're going to take if they're non-degree seeking or degree seeking. Going back to where we were, withdrawals. We do not count withdrawals in the GPA. That's pretty self-explanatory, but we found that some people didn't realize that. The best thing to do is mark them out on the transcript using pencil. Never write on a transcript in pen. Withdrawal failing does count as an F in the GPA calculations. There's no grade considered for a withdrawal passing. However, withdrawal failing does count as an F. You'll also see transcripts that are incomplete or in progress. And this is an example from the University of Alabama. And you'll see that this particular spring is still in progress. Spring term 2015, so this is an older transcript. So what we have to do is calculate their GPA as if they had failed all of these classes, because what if they withdraw failing? What if they forget they're in class and they get failing grades assigned to them? We need to see if they're still going to meet admissions requirements. So I've done the math for us. Here we go. And so we calculate the GPA on this transcript. They've got a whole bunch of A's, total of 27 hours of A's. They've got some B's, got 4 of those, worth 12 hours. Got several C's, totaling 11 hours. And again, all of these classes, there's 4 of them, and all 4 are worth 3 credit hours. 4 3 credit hour classes is going to be 12 hours added to this as F's. Totaling that, you get 62. And then multiplying out the points with the A's, the B's, and C's, no credit for the F's, you get 166. When we divide it out, 166 divided by the 62 hours, this student still would have a 2.67, so no matter what happens with these classes here, if they withdraw from them, if they fail them, whatever, they're still going to meet admissions requirements. So we can give them temporary admission with this. However, they will have to provide a final transcript before they can clear their admissions and have their final admissions decision. So will this person qualify for temporary admission? Yes. Even if they fail all 4 courses in progress, they still have a 2.67 GPA, worst case scenario. So that's what we're trying to figure out. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. We've already looked at that. Okay, so now we're going to look at some college transcripts. This one is from Darton State College, and it's a pretty straightforward transcript. Some questions we've got to look at. What other schools has this applicant been to? And when you look at it, you can see that they've gone to Georgia Southwestern State University back in 2011. What would we need to make this person temporary? Preferably a copy of the Georgia Southwestern transcript. That way, if it's an unofficial or official, it would help us determine their exact GPA. The next question is hypothetical. Would you try to estimate transfer credit? Why or why not? I would, and the reason is you've got Georgia Southwestern State University transfer credit all listed here. It's spelled out for us. This one has a CT. This was a 3 credit hour C grade transfer credit. The next one listed is a 2-hour computer class. They had a B, transfer credit. The next one down is music appreciation, 3 hours with an A, transfer credit. Keep on going down, you've got 2 more C's. And this last section, you've got 2 C's, a B, and another C. So we can get a guesstimated GPA for Georgia Southwestern based on what was transferred in. The hesitation for doing that is, what if the Georgia Southwestern State transcript shows additional coursework that for whatever reason Darton State waived or decided not to count or just completely ignored. So there have been cases where what shows on a transcript as transfer credit is not exactly the same thing as what's on the official transcript when it comes in. So just be careful when doing that. Make sure that the GPA is unquestionable so that if there are a few bad grades that transfer in, that we don't disadvantage the student. Looking at the second page of this transcript, here's my notes. Okay, looking at the next page. This one shows all the institution credits starting with fall 2011. And some questions I would have are there any remedial courses? When you look, English 1102, History 112, Math 111, Psychology 1101, they're jumping right into college level courses here. Check the next section and check the next section. There are no remedial courses on this transcript. What about technical courses? Again, you look through all the course numbers and the names. There is nothing that would be non-college academic credit, so there are no technical courses. When you look at the grades, there's no pluses or minuses. So everything's just straightforward 4.0 grades. So this is a good, simple transcript. The total institution shows that they've got 41 hours. The GPA hours is what we use. Again, that's 41 hours, 115 points. They have a 2.80 GPA. But because we are learning how to evaluate transcripts, we'll go ahead and take all these grades, fill out our chart, and see what we get. Okay, so when you take all the grades listed in all the columns, put them in the chart, you get your total hours, 41, same as this transcript. The values for each of the grades, multiply it out and get your points. The total points we get is 115. Again, exactly the same as this transcript. When you divide it out, 115 by 41, same thing, 2.80, 2.80. So this is a very easy transcript to start with. Let's look at one that's a bit harder. Enterprise State Community College. Now, one of the challenges on this one is the font that they use is sort of difficult to read. Hopefully your copy is better than what you might see on my screen. But let me go ahead and advance to the next page right here. Actually, I skipped a page, sorry. This page right here, I wanted you to note that there's transfer credit accepted from Chipola Junior College. What I did on my copy is I just marked that out completely as transfer credit. And then this next section, you're looking to see if there's any classes we don't want to count. You don't want to count vocational classes, technical classes, remedial courses, and anything that was withdrawn. So when you go through this transcript, you would remove this basic mathematics. You would remove the elementary algebra. Going on down, reviewing each class. Next column, going on down. This pre-calculus algebra was a withdrawal, so we removed that. And then you'll note that this pre-calculus algebra, taken a second time, does not have a grade posted, so it would be in progress. So I made a note on mine that it's in progress. Going to the next page. We have to calculate the GPA and answer the questions. Let's look at my answers. Tallying all the grades from the transcript, you end up getting a total of 54 points. Remember that in progress class, we count that as an F. It's a 3-hour course, so 3 hours of F counted in that 54 total. The point values for each grade. Total up your points to get 142. The 142 divided by 54, you get a 2.62. And just as a reminder, we never round up our GPAs. Some questions. Where else did this student attend? When you look at the beginning of the transcript, it was Chipola Junior College. Question, were there any remedial courses? Yes, Math 090 and 098. Did we see any vocational courses? No. Were there any repeated courses? Not technically, but they withdrew from Math 1112 or 112. They tried again, which was in progress. How many hours of transfer credit was on this? There was 9 hours. How many points? Unknown due to no grades. What GPA did you calculate? It was a 2.62 with in progress as failing. What GPA did ESCC have, Enterprise State Community College? They had a 2.86 before the student was in the math class that's currently in progress. So the 2.62 with the in progress as failing would meet temporary admissions requirements. Then there's the University of Phoenix. It's a 2-page transcript, and because of the way the screenshots were done, the questions are on the first page and the calculations are on the second page. So going back, So going back to the first page, I'm going to go ahead and go to the answers. It says, were there any remedial courses? Yes, there was a basic math class. That's right here, this Math 1112, basic math. I've marked it as remedial. And the Math 116 1A, that was a withdrawal the first time. And it's questionable what type of algebra is that. Is it a pre-algebra? Is it college algebra? So I actually went to the University of Phoenix website. I looked it up, and it states that this is a college algebra course. So I will count that based on their course description. Other things that are marked out is this public policy and development and human services, because that was a withdrawal, so we won't count that. Professional communications was a WC, not quite sure exactly what that meant, but it's a withdrawal. And nothing marked out on this page. Oh, yep, there's one. Motivational processes in human psychology was a withdrawal. And here you'll see this little line dividing it. All these 500 level courses are going to be graduate level courses. You do not count graduate level courses when calculating your undergraduate GPA. So going back to our questions, were there any graduate courses? Yes. How many hours of transfer credit? None listed. How many points? Not applicable. What undergraduate GPA did you calculate? What undergraduate GPA did University of Phoenix have? I believe the difference in these GPAs is due to this person having minuses on several of their grades, which would bring their GPA down just a hair. Looking at the calculations, they had 29 A's, 5 B's, 4 C's, 1 D. Multiplying that all out, you get 117 hours at the undergraduate level, again excluding graduate courses, and the points totaled of 420. Dividing that out, I got a 3.58. Here, University of Phoenix summarizes their GPAs. You've got the associate's level, you've got the bachelor's level, and the master's level. So I was comparing this GPA here with their bachelor's level, which is the total of their undergraduate, as a 3.5. And then another example, I think this is our final example at the college level, is the University of Alabama. Hopefully your copy is readable. Some questions are, where did this student earn transfer credit? Let me go to the answers to look. All right, we got Wallace State Community College. We have Auburn University main campus, and this one's in Selma. This one here is University of North Georgia. And then institution credit starts here. Some things I've marked out are this no grade, then a withdrawal, and another withdrawal. Let's look at the second page. And 3 more withdrawals. So going back, the questions. The transfer credit were from these schools. Were there any remedial courses? You don't compare these here at all. You start with the institution courses. When you look through the list of courses on the first page, everything on the second page was withdrawn. There are no remedial courses. Any repeat courses? Yes, on transfer work. On the transfer work, you'll see this A, I. Those often indicate courses that were included with I's or excluded with A's. A's are usually going to be excluded. Sometimes it'll be an R for a repeat. Sometimes they'll have other indications like asterisks. You'll want to look at the scale on the back of the transcript letting you know what those indicate. In this case, this person took Principles of Microeconomics, Wallace State Community College, Selma. Then they retook it at Auburn University, Principles of Microeconomics. Those are on two separate transcripts. We evaluate each transcript individually. You'll evaluate Wallace by itself and get a GPA. You'll evaluate Auburn by itself and get a GPA. And you'll evaluate University of North Georgia by itself and get a GPA. We don't ever waive courses from one transcript to the other from different colleges. When that'll be done by the Academic Evaluation Center according to Troy's guidelines. We don't do that in admissions. So the note here says admissions cannot exclude EC 110 at Wallace retaken at Auburn. So looking at this transcript, how many hours of credit did they have? They have 22 hours of credit with 63 points. 63 divided by 22 is a 2.86. Now thinking about the position of the enrollment coordinators, if this was the transcript turned in by the student, they only have 22 hours of credit, so we would need at least some previous transcripts to determine their eligibility. So hopefully they would be able to give you some unofficial copies of transcripts from these other schools. Again, the grades are listed and you could guesstimate. However, what if there's some classes that are not listed on this transcript that you might need to include? So comparing the GPAs, I got a 2.86, they got a 2.99. They had quite a few plus grades on theirs, so I think they got extra credit for those. There was no degree earned on this transcript. Okay, so that's your general college transcripts. Some colleges still use quarter hours. We work on a semester basis. If you get a transcript that comes to you in quarter hours, it will need to be converted over to semesters. And so I'll let you look through this and read some of the details. But in general, when you convert quarter hours to semester hours, you multiply by a factor of 0.667. So most of our classes on a quarter transcript are going to be 5 hours, which will be equivalent to a 3.33. What's easy is if you have a 4.5 on a quarter hour transcript because it's equivalent to 3 semester hours, which is exactly what we use. Some others that you'll see are 4, 3, 2, and here's the equivalents. And for your information, it does take 36 quarter hours to equal 24 semester hours. So if you get a transcript that has 24 quarter hours, that's not the same as 24 semester hours. Here's an example of converting. You can take these grades here and I think it's this third column, which I may be a little bit hard to read, you figure out the number of hours. You've got one class that's worth 1 quarter hour with an A. You've got one class that's worth 2 quarter hours with a C. You've got 2 3 quarter hour classes, one's a B, one's a C. You've got 1 5 quarter hour class worth a B. Taking all those totals and multiplying them across and converting the hours, 1 quarter hour is 0.667. 8 quarter hours times 0.667, you get 5.336. 5 quarter hours converted is equivalent to 3.335. Now that these are converted and you total it, you multiply those across by your GPA, grade point values to get the number of points earned, and you total that. Then you divide it like normal, 25.343 divided by 9.338 equals 2.713. And for comparison, to make sure we got it right, look over here, 2.71 is the exact same GPA. So we do get the same GPA, we just have a difference in hours. When you look at the quarter hours, they had 14 quarter hours, but that's only equivalent to 9.33 semester hours. And when you need a certain number of hours totaled, then that does make a difference. Okay, let's do practice number 1. Practice number 1 is pretty easy because it's 4.5 credit hours on each of the different classes. Those, if you look back at our chart, those are equivalent to 3.0 semester hours, which makes it nice and easy. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the answers. They're all 4.5, so you put 4.5 quarter hours. There were 2 B's, put that in the chart. 2 C's, put that in the chart. 2 times 4.5 is 9 quarter hours. 2 times 4.5 is 9 quarter hours at the C level. Take this 9 and multiply it by 0.667 and you get 6.0, both of those. And then you multiply that across by the grade point total and you get 18 and 12. So for semester hours, you get 12. It was not 18 quarter hours, which is equivalent to 12 semester hours. Add up the points and you get 30. And when you divide 30 by 12, you get a 2.5. So the overall GPA is a 2.5. It's a little bit different than the cumulative GPA on this transcript because notice they got several pluses and minuses, and that's a different value. Practice number 2 is a little bit tougher. So you have this blank chart here, and you'll notice you've got some 5-hour classes. You've got a 4-hour class and some 5-hour classes. So we need at least a 5 column and a 4 column. You can tell this is quarter hours because it says winter quarter, spring quarter. So you do know you need to convert it at this point. Here's our answers. The 4 hours, there was 1 C. The 5 hours, there was 2 A's, 2 B's, and 1 C. 2 A's worth 5 points each, or 5 hours each, is 10 total hours. 2 B's, 5 hours each, is total of 10 hours at the B level. 4 hours of C plus 5 hours of C totals 9. Multiply each of these numbers by the 0.667 conversion factor. Then multiply those by the value of each grade letter to get your points earned. And so you got your semester hours converted here to 19.34. This was 29. And you've got your points earned as 58.69. Divide that out and you get a 3.03. A note here I made, conversion of quarter hours makes a difference because at first glance it looks like this person has 29 hours. So you think that this is all that we need to make them a transfer student. However, they really only have 19.34 hours and they need 24 to be a transfer student. So if this was the only transcript from the student, we would need their high school transcript. So it does make a difference. Practice number 3 on page 36. Again, this one's a little bit more difficult. You've got 5, 4, 5s. Even though these show 0 earned, it shows the attempted hours here as 5. You'll notice that E's are on this transcript. E's are the equivalent of an F. So here's the answers. Again, you've got quarters. You know it's a quarter hours. GPA hours, they have 45. They have a 1.13. So we want to recalculate this just to make sure we have the right number of hours in semesters. So we've got a column for the 4s, a column for the 5s, and a column for the 1s. The 1 right here. It was 0 hours earned, but it was a 1-hour course. And next to the F, I put the E's or ENs are considered failing. And so multiplying everything across, you get your number of hours in quarters. Multiply that all by the 0.667, and you get 30.01 semester hours, grade value, and the actual points earned is 36. 36 divided by 30 is going to be a 1.2. So I got a slightly higher GPA than they did, but still not good enough. And a reverse way, this is explained in a couple pages back, but you can also take the 45 GPA hours earned at the quarter level, plug it into this formula, multiply it by 0.667 to get the 30.01, and then take the GPA that the school got and put it in this box and multiply that to get 34 points. So we could use either 34 or 36 points in our GPA calculations. We can use the 30.015 or the 30.01 in our GPA calculations. So either one would be fine. So quarter hours are a lot more work, and I know the staff here really tries to avoid them, but it has to be done because it does make a difference. All right, graduate entrance exams. Well, let me go back. Is there any questions regarding college transcripts or quarter hours? I know I will be sharing all these answers with you, and you're welcome to try to replicate the answers or see what questions you have, and we'll be glad to work with you individually if you have some. Okay, moving on. MAT scores. These are real easy. They just have a scaled score, and each of the different graduate programs has their own requirements. GRE scores. Again, these are all graduate level, but I just want you to be familiar with these. Looking at the GRE transcript, we take the scores under the quantitative and the reading, so add those two scores together to get a 277. Here's one from Recruiter. You take the verbal and the quantitative, add those together to get a 275. So figuring out GRE scores is quite easy. GMAT scores are easy also. There's one column that says a total. It has no relation at all to any of the other columns around it. The total is the score we need. So looking here, this is a 550. When you get the Recruiter score imported, the composite score is listed out directly for you as a 620. And something new this year, you may or may not be aware of it, is the MCAT and the LSAT are going to be accepted for the Master of Adult Education program. There are some minimum requirements that are listed on the quick reference guide, but this is new, and I think as we learn more about them, we'll be able to help. But these are just copied out of their web pages. Okay, so I wanted to keep this short. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. The rest of your book has examples of the graduate student acknowledgement and recommendation form, the graduate student acknowledgement only, non-accredited institutions, the Community College of the Air Force, the international transcribed transcripts through ECE and ACRO, joint services transcripts, a little bit about fraudulent documents. I've done a recording of fraudulent documents that I'll be getting out to everybody. Some information about diploma mills. Those of you in Georgia, we do not take Southwest Georgia Institute of Education, or SWIGE as it's known. There's a section on transfer equivalencies on the Troy Records webpage and the Free and 48 services. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Does anyone have any they would like to share, or any comments? Well, if there's no questions, this recording is being, or this webinar is being recorded, so we will be getting it out to everyone, and those that were not able to attend can go through it. I'll get all the answers over to you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Morgan and I can be reached at the training email. It's tgctraining@troy.edu. Again, that's tgctraining@troy.edu. And we thank everyone for attending.